Sounds between far and near. Students cheer and spread the word. Sounds the one you must have heard. From the campus to the town, no one brings the station down. Independent all the way. Sam Newsman forever stay. Sam Newsman on the air. Feel the groove everywhere. College spirit makes us proud. Rich voices sing out loud.
You could accept the fact that the city is headed for a disaster of biblical proportion. What do you mean this Old Testament? Yeah, Mayor. Real wrath of God type stuff. Fire and brimstone coming down from the skies. Rivers and seas boiling. 40 years of darkness, earthquakes, volcanoes. The dead rising from the grave. Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together. That's hysteria.
Ladies and gentlemen, comrades and capitalists alike, allow me to present to you the most radical political text of our generation. That's right, Mario Kart. Yes, that innocent-looking racing game that you played at sleepovers where friendships went to die between Rainbow Road and a well-timed banana peel. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I tell you, it's not just a game. No. It's a full-blown political allegory. And a rolling turbo-boosted lecture in social democracy, cleverly disguised as family fun. At its core, Mario Kart is basically the Che Guevara of video games. Is that how you say it? Guevara? Anyways, everybody just says Che, right? So if I just says the Che of video games, people will sit there and tell me, they'll say, oh, well, you said it wrong. Phooey. So it's the Che of video games. How's that? Wearing a red shell beret, fighting to ensure that no one, and I mean no one, enjoys being in first place for more than about 7 seconds. Let's start with the blue shell, shall we? The guillotine of the racetrack. This thing doesn't care how hard you worked to get to first place, practiced every turn, drifted like a Fast and Furious extra. Too bad. The blue shell doesn't reward merit. It punishes success. It's progressive taxation on wheels, basically. The IRS with spikes. And just like real taxes, it never shows up when you're struggling, only when you're finally happy. So, come on. It's always at the last moment, too. You're about to go through the proverbial, finish line. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it's like, oh, by the way, you were in first place, but now you're in 7th. Because why? A blue shell gotcha. But it's not just blue shells. No. There's also the superstar. A sparkling welfare boost for the cart impoverished. You're floundering in 10th place, your self-esteem in the gutter, then boom, you're invincible, fast, and can obliterate the competition like the ghost of FDR just handed you a glowing bottle of the New Deal. This is the snap benefits of Mario Kart. Temporary, powerful, and only available once you've tasted rock bottom. And for those who've truly given up on their dreams, we have the bullet bill. This isn't help. This is a takeover, a hostile takeover. This is the mob, socialism with the autopilot. You suck so badly, the game just goes, here, sweetie, let me drive for you. It's the virtual equivalent of a government bailout. You crash enough times and suddenly you're a high-speed missile barreling toward a finish line that you had no business approaching in the first place. So it's always a nightmare when all of a sudden you see somebody just ripping past you. There's this huge bullet and it knocks you out of the way. It's ridiculous. Oh, here's one of my favorites, the banana peels. Oh, you're familiar with the trade tariffs, right? Yeah, so banana peels, that's what they are. They're the trade tariffs left behind by the elite to trip up the competition and secure their dominant market position. You didn't think the guy in first place was playing fair, did you? I mean, he's banana peeling it like it's the WTO. He's Amazon in Mario form, laying obstacles for mom and pop carts all behind him. So, I mean, nothing is worse than the banana peel. It always comes out of nowhere. And in the new game, you can sit there and snipe people from side to side, with the banana peel. Not just the banana peels, but the shells as well. Speaking of shells, red shells are targeted regulation, like the DOJ dropping antitrust lawsuits on big tech. Oh, you're just one spot ahead. Congratulations. Enjoy your shell-based subpoena. Green shells, on the other hand, are pure capitalism. No homing, no help, just skill and aim. Or, more often, chaotic ricochets and self-inflicted karma. This is the libertarian's weapon of choice. Inefficient, unpredictable, but hey, at least it's fair, right? Right? Fair. What the heck is fair? Now, if you're into chaos and a slight chance of self-destruction, say hello to the bomb, Marxism in explosive form. Sure, you could blow up the people ahead of you, but odds are you're going down with them because nothing says revolution like destroying your own lead. So, I mean, that's the case, right? You're always sitting there trying to throw the bomb to somebody else, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, you're running over it. And it's like, oh, wait a minute, that was meant for someone else, not me. But there it goes. Oh, yes, that's right. Then we have the lightning bolt, the nuclear option of redistribution, a mass flattening of society, everywhere to everyone, except you in last place. Everyone else is shrunk, slowed down, and suffering. It's debt relief meets Armageddon. And yes, it's only given to the worst racers. Why? Because in Mario Kart, failure is not punished. It's accommodated, turbocharged, and gift wrapped. It's like, here you go. But let's not forget the boo, the ghost, the kleptomaniac of the track, a shadowy force that steals from the unsuspecting and gives to the invisible. It's redistribution without representation. Let's not kid ourselves. It's the IRS, offshore accounts, and Robin Hood all rolled up into one translucent specter of late-stage capitalism. And then we arrive at triple items, the 401k of the mushroom kingdom, a healthy middle-class buffer zone. You're not rich enough to be bombed, not poor enough to get bullet billed, but you've got a few shells and bananas spinning around you like a decent credit score. This is suburban Mario Kart. You're not winning, but hey, just think, you are protected. Well, somewhat. And then finally, there's the crazy eight. Oh yes, a swirling buffet of chaos. The government just dropped a stimulus package on your lap the size of Yoshi. Stars, shells, bombs, mushrooms. It's the digital equivalent of quantitative easing with extra mushrooms. Desperate, bloated, and kind of amazing. So the question is, what does all of this mean? As I'm going through this and thinking about all of this and how this all goes, I'm going to have to say that Mario Kart doesn't promote unbridled capitalism, where the best zoom ahead and the rest eat dust, nor does it champion full communism, where everyone shares a tie and we all pretend nobody lost. Instead, no, it preaches the sweet gospel of democratic socialism. Competition, sure, but with guardrails. You can win, but not without being chased, shocked, and shell-shamed along the way. As far as the track, what does that represent? Well, that's society. The items, those our economic policies. The players, us, unequally skilled, randomly blessed, and constantly sabotaging each other with fruit. So when you're thinking about Mario Kart and all the lessons there are within, you can win the race. Just don't get too comfortable, because the moment you do, the game remembers and it sends the blue shell right to you. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go off and file my taxes and maybe drop a banana peel behind my accountant. And it's interesting because somebody sat there and told me earlier in the week, they say, that Mario Kart represents socialism, right? And I was like, what? And then sure enough, I started doing some research, and then here you go. There it is, plain as day. Doesn't shock me one bit, but there we have it, that Mario Kart, and I'm not trying to sit there and ruin your childhood by making Mario Kart political, but facts are facts. It's been going on since 1992. That's probably as long, almost as long as Iran has been making a nuclear weapon, right? So, but no, we'll get into all of that in just a few moments. Broadcasting live from the beautiful Overcast campus here at the University of Richmond. You're listening to WDCE 90.1 FM from the most trusted puppet in media, reporting since Roswell. I'm Sam Newsman, and this is SideShow Infotainment. I want to thank everyone, of course, for joining into the show. I see a couple of people in here already. Tip of the cap to Mary Murr, first as usual. Old Aunt Sarah. No, not the Pancake House. No, not that. No, but she's in here as well. Aaron, we have also Old World Micmac. We have Not Joking to Me, Mythoclast. People are joining in right now here, and we are broadcasting from Facebook, YouTube, and X. That's Facebook, YouTube, and X. And that's on @SamNewsman. Also piggybacking on Exertus. So tip of the cap to Exertus, who should be joining us maybe in about 10 minutes. I know that he's at a Rubber Fist parade somewhere in Vienna. So you're familiar with the Rubber Fist parades, right? Well, it is Rubber Fist Month, Rainbow Rubber Fist Month. Let me make sure that I say that correctly. I don't want to sit there and misspeak. Got to give a tip of the cap to the Rainbow Rubber Fist Brigade. So, they have a whole month dedicated to Rainbow Rubber Fist. So, but it's the only time you can sit there and go to a parade and see them waving around the rubber fist. Because if you just were just running around waving a rubber fist anywhere else, people will think that you're crazy. And they'll say, wait a minute, why are you running around with a rubber fist? But in June, it's okay. It's okay in June. So, but he's in Vienna. Well, wait a minute. Now, producer, you've been to Vienna, right? Right? Okay. Yeah. Sorry, real quick, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry. The producer, you can't hear them. And that's all by design. Last thing I want you to do is have your ears bleed because the producer is starting to talk. It's got to be the worst thing ever. It's like a train wreck. It's a radio train wreck. If you start hearing the producer start speaking, because they're like, rah, 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 and you're just like, stop it. Oh my gosh, everybody's going to change the channel now. So, but the producer, so what was that? You were left in the middle of Vienna by yourself? Did you cry? You were freaked out. Oh, you went back into the cathedral. That's fun. So you went back into the cathedral and dipped your hand in the holy water, making sure that hopefully somebody would come back and return and get you. So, well, that's interesting. So I don't know. Like I said, they're at a parade in Vienna. Not sure exactly if they will join in, but I think it's Exertus and Raf. They're both in Vienna at this, but it's going to be very interesting, no less. So what is this? You should look up the story plot for Black Ops 2. It's a second Cold War and has China versus USA in a trade war over rare earth minerals and is set in the year 2025. Oh, this is coming in from one of the listeners and the viewers who are here while we're over here on YouTube. When it comes to Call of Duty, Black Ops, Fortnite, and Mario Kart, you're familiar with science, right? They always say, trust the science. Well, the science says that Mario Kart is actually the most stressful game of all time. No, I mean, you can sit there and talk about your Fortnite and, like you said, your Pokemon or whatever, your Super Smash Brothers, your Street Fighter. None of that really matters. All that matters is that Mario Kart is more stressful than all of them. So that's just, like I said, that's the science. Don't listen. You don't have to sit there and say, oh, well, you know what? Sam's just making stuff up. No, you can Google this. In fact, my question is, are you still even using Google anymore? We say Google this. Should be Chat GPT in this, because that's really a better search engine anyway, is Chat GPT. Unless, and Chat GPT is amazing unless you're a chessboard, right? Did you see this that came out this week? The Atari 2600, made back in 1979, it beat Chat GPT in a chess match. So people are sitting there saying, oh, well, AI is going to take over the world. Well, you know what? It has to beat Atari first. And it hasn't been able to do that. So that's just, that to me is just, well, I guess we're not there yet. We were talking about this last week, the whole artificial intelligence, the takeover, quantum mechanics and all that jazz, CERN. But, you're just sitting there thinking about all this, just makes your head scratch that, okay, well, AI is supposed to take over, but it can't beat Atari in chess. So I don't know. It just makes me scratch my head. But here's something else too. Did you see this week? Because I was going to sit there and do this whole Mario Kart thing, and I decided that I'm just going to do it right out of the gate, even though the fact that we had peaceful protest earlier in the week. World War III started about 48 hours ago. And it was just like, well, where the heck am I supposed to even start? But I was like, listen, it has to be Mario Kart. I put all this effort into Mario Kart. Mario Kart's been something that has been socialist and communist driven for the last 33 years. But we have to talk about the other stuff going on. That's right. So peaceful protesting that is happening. In fact, today is a day of protest. There's protests going on here in Virginia. I think the governor sat there and said, Governor Grift. Yeah, Governor Grift Youngkin. So Governor Grift Youngkin sits there and says, oh, well, make sure that if you are protesting, you follow all the rules, or we're going to have to get the Marines to come in and lock you up, just like they did in California. They're doing it all over the country. Do you remember the last time that military troops were actually arresting people on American soil? Do you remember when that was? Had to be when? But during World War II, when they imprisoned a bunch of Japanese in internment camps, right? I mean, that's probably the last time something like this happened. It just seems like that all of a sudden war comes around, and it's like, oh, by the way, now that war's here and things are going on, we can kind of just blend everything together and go ahead and just start arresting people for their peaceful protesting. But listen, I'm telling you what, when people are burning their own cars and they're burning their, just leave them alone. Let them burn their own cars. It's not until the police come in that all of a sudden out of nowhere, it's like, oh, now we have a problem because the police had to show up and, get all in the way of people having a good time, burning their own cars, looting and rioting peacefully. Make sure everybody understands that, peacefully. But, that's kind of, it's interesting. Well, listen, if you're going to go out and protest this weekend, just be safe. And, you probably should just stay at home and play Mario Kart and recognize the fact that it represents reality. No, it's true. It is true. And so that's kind of how that all is working out. Now, I have to get to this particular topic, and that is the fact that we have one country that bombed, what was it? Gaza, Syria, Lebanon, and now Iran. And for some reason, they're still the victims. But I mean, hey, listen, you can't sit there and blame them, though, right? Because when somebody says, oh, death to Israel or death to Jews, I guess that's kind of a snap reaction, because I guess they don't want to be destroyed themselves. But I guess you can't sit there and say that America needs to fund Israel anymore, do they? Because it seems like that they're doing a good job doing all this themselves. Now, it'd be interesting if I were to sit there and say, hey, well, I have a side, and I'm on this side or on that side. You know what side I'm on? I'm on side no death. How about that side? How about, can we get on the side of, can everybody get along? But this has been going on for years, over 40 plus years. And we've always been about, a couple months away from Iran getting a bomb. Now this time, Iran was supposed to do some kind of agreement and everything like that. But however, what happened is they decided not to do the deal. And then all of a sudden, Israel out of nowhere comes and starts blowing stuff up. And this is, like I said, after the Lebanon, after Syria, after Gaza. And we have this oh my gosh, it's ridiculous. You saw what happened, right? The price of oil shot up. And now we have, so who knows what's going to go down next. But I know that this is going to happen and it's going to last a long time. I went and picked up the Washington Post. Let's see, do we have the Washington Post here? Yes, so I'm not just sitting there making all this stuff up. Actually, I have the Washington Post here. And it says right here on the front page of the Washington Post, Iran retaliates with no end in sight. Did you see the images last night? Tel Aviv on fire. I guess that whole Iron Dome thing didn't work out really, huh? So they're always talking about, the Iron Dome is going to protect us and everything is going to be okay. And in fact, I think that the president, old Orange 45, what did he say? Well, no, now it's Orange 47. Excuse me. Sorry, I'll make sure I get the numbers right. Old Orange 47 now says that he wants to make a dome around us. Well, listen, if the dome that they have over there is not stopping any missiles, is a dome over here going to stop a bunch of missiles, right? I mean, that's what I want to know. So it just made, like I said, what did they say? Oh yeah, oy vey. Oy vey. But this is what it says. It says, Iran retaliates with no end in sight. Israel says it intercepted most of the missiles. Both sides accuse the other of crossing red lines. Well, I want to know what red line that Iran crossed. Was it because they didn't sign the agreement right out of the gate? Maybe that's the case. I don't know. I'm just asking. I mean, that seems to be the idea. But I don't know. So, someone said, every time I hear Iran, I think of the Flock of Seagulls song. That's funny. Now, that's a good one. Now every time I hear the word Iran, I'm going to be thinking that, and I ran so far away. Now that's stuck in my head. So, but that is a good point. And, maybe it'll make me smile when I hear the word Iran. So, but here we are, like I said, we have this whole idea we got with this Iran stuff. And of course, far be it from me when we're talking about Iran, we need to go into some of the history. We have to go into some of the history, how this all started, where did Israel even come from? And of course,
because it's Iran.
It's like Iran, is that what you said?
It's like ironic, ironic, man.
Hey, isn't it ironic, don't you? It's it's like rain on your wedding day. It's like a free
It's Alanis Morissette,
right?
It's Alanis Morissette's 51st birthday today. Did you know that? Alanis Morissette's
her 51st birthday, and all of a sudden, here I am just quoting. See, that's how it all works. We were talking about astrology last week and how everything just lines up when we do this show. But I do have Exertus here with me. Now, it doesn't look like that you are participating at the moment in a rainbow rubber fist parade.
I wanted to be very careful, I just wanted to see what's going on because about a week ago, there was a Sandy Hook event, let's call it, in Austria, in Graz. Yeah, Graz had this shooter, this kid, this boy who is like on the internet all the time without any social media. So they're going to need to make laws to prevent guns in Austria where they're still kind of legal. So they're preparing for NATO to consume the EU, and everybody doesn't realize all their countries are just freaking states now, just like it happened under Abraham Lincoln in the Federalist period. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So they said they're going to do the Pride Parade with a moment of silence for like 3 hours, which can you imagine like a somber Pride Parade where they're like, oh, we were too prideful. We got to turn the music down for 3 hours. It's pretty silly. It's pretty funny. But I'm just here at Raphael's abode, his apartment. His parents have this like beautiful rooftop place nearby. So we went to the rooftop and we're just like looking over the city and checking it out. And it was pretty chill. It wasn't like they were like San Franciscans or something like that, which like I was thinking too, like if you're a homophobe, isn't that a bit more preoccupied with homosexuality than you should be anyway? So the people really from the 80s who were making like fundraisers because they were terrified that their friends who were dying from CIA AIDS created the UN in Africa. So I can get behind the like 1980s dudes that are like, hey, you know what? Like I'm a good, hardworking, decent gay, you know, like I'm a tax-paying gay. But like then there's this transgender like ideology, like the LGBTQ thing that's come out, and I'm pretty sure all of that is like Coca-Cola co-option of the Odwalla Juice Company. You know, they're just taking over what it used to be like a log cabin Republican. Was
right. That's true. It's everything you're saying is true and factual. Now, I don't know if you've probably been seeing what's been going on. We had a bunch of peaceful protests over in LA. It's going on all across the country now, over here across the pond.
Oh boy,
and
yeah.
then all of a sudden, it seems like 48 hours ago, World War III started. So what's the vibe like over in Vienna and across the pond when you're seeing all this ridiculousness that's happening over here in the U.S.?
I just wanted to salute the, you know, like the mostly peaceful terrorists for using mostly peaceful bricks back home. You know, that's the way Americans are supposed to protest. And it'd be weird if Obama tried to take over California any other time in history. I would have been like, no, I don't want the federal government to take over the state. Like we already have like a constitution and a republic for a reason. But, you know, California has been getting deeper and deeper into the state, and the federal government is just so good at their propaganda. Who doesn't love like the Trump like media blitz? It's beautiful. It's always so fun to watch. And the idea of sending in the Marines for Pride Week makes a lot of sense. But on the 12th, it was, you know, because today's Saturday now, the 14th. Yeah. So 12th was Friday. The 13th was Friday the 13th. The 12th was Thursday. The 12th was Russia's Independence Day. And I was already saying like a week ago, I was like, well, what's going to happen is this calm before the storm where Elon and Trump are breaking up online. So everyone wants to watch that 90210 episode. And everyone forgets about the fact that Ukraine just, with the help of the United States and probably Elon Musk, did some terrorist acts, you know, essentially. I mean, it depends on what you want to call terrorists, because they have technically state existence, but Russia doesn't acknowledge them as, you know, a true state, which means they don't have a monopoly of violence in that region. So they have like hackers that created drones that dropped and destroyed. You all seen the news, but for anyone watching later in history, right? The Ukrainians with America bombed a military base in Russia, and then there was no response for a while. Then all of a sudden bombs started dropping right after Russian Independence Day. And we're distracted from that with the Iran-Israel thing, because on Friday the 13th, Israel starts bombing Iran. And so that begins what we're calling, you know, this treaty talk that, I mean, it's the Alliance of Eastern Tartary, which is, you know, Trump tried to get Putin to meet, and there were, you know, the Pope, for the American Pope, between his baseball games, a White Sox hat, wanted to have the meeting in Rome, which would have been kind of monumental. But you have to understand, Rome is this adjacent to Constantinople schismatic church. So they don't really, and the Russians aren't going to do that. So they went to the source, right? Istanbul, Constantinople. You've heard the Might Be Giant song. So in Constantinople, on his way to Constantinople, on his way to Istanbul, Putin's flying a helicopter, maybe himself, because he can fly a helicopter, and drones start attacking him, which is another thing. They're like, okay, this peace treaty is not going down where we wanted it and the way we wanted it. So, I mean, they went and signed a peace treaty with Iran today, which is a 20-year pact, like an alliance of 20 years. And so begins, I think, like the triple BRICS, which is the BRICS versus NATO. Countries and states are taking stands right now to unite against and for NATO. And so Poland is sort of the military capital, but Austria as this sort of meeting ground place, because this is a place which has always been protected for the East and the West to send their, you know, company men to do the meetings. Like they can meet outside a church in some trench coats and exchange documents until COVID hit, and then they had to stand 2 meters apart. But this has always been that place. So they're trying to keep that open, but they're also reducing the amount of weapons that can be in Austria before this conflict. So yeah, I think that's kind of what's going on. And the energy is definitely distracted, because there's enough, just like in America, there's enough, you know, I want to say let's just call it again, Sandy Hook events that keep people distracted. Again, the Gross shooting is the one that's like the most, like the biggest news around here, because they never have shootings in this country, and so all of this stuff happening simultaneously is pretty sketchy, right?
Well, yeah, and it is, and like I've always have said that when you start seeing stuff like this happen, it's just going to snowball, and things are
Yeah,
just going to continue just to get worse and worse. Now,
in the mouth of someone at
we
the
were talking about
parade.
the propaganda and how it's blanketed all over the place here in America. That was an old Obama executive order, I believe, back a few years ago. Still just kept on going. Even with the next administration and the administration after that, and now we have Orange 47 coming back in, and they never got rid of that. So propaganda can be weaponized and used against the American public now. My
Oh, we're
question
really
to
good
you
at
is,
it.
is it the same way over there? I mean, how is the media
More than
representation
ever.
of all of this? I mean, I was
Well,
sitting there
so
seeing that, what is it, on Iran State TV, we had Nick Fuentes. They're playing Nick Fuentes on Iran State TV. What is going on with all of this?
well, they would agree with a lot of things he had to say, or they would think it was really ironic. I think because ironic. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, because this idea that Nick Fuentes pushes for like masculine dominance is something that's not, people don't understand. Iran's not really that Muslim. Like, there are definitely Muslims there, but they're very reactionary. Most of the people are really disgruntled with their government anyway, and so there's a lot of push for like Zoroastrianism or generally like scientific atheism, which, that's always that, like the 90s, there's always a phase before simulation theory that happens to a people. So they're going through their rejection of the state. And you might remember a few months ago, I've been saying, what did I say all last year? Type in my name on Twitter and Iran, and you'll just see, like, I kept saying Iran will be liberated by this summer. Iran will be liberated by June. And here we are, like, we're in the process of exactly the timetable that I just, sorry, just to remind people, like, I've been saying this for a while, that there's going to be this revolutionary period because so many Iranians are willing to work against their own, they want to replace their government anyway. It's like, we have to remember Carter they removed the Shah, and the Shah like lived in a lot of them moved to California and lived in Santa Cruz. Like, I've met like members of the Shah family that are pretty chill people. They were very Western. Iran was super cool. And then Carter basically helped, and I don't want to blame Carter completely, because obviously H.W. Bush and the CIA had like a lot of control over this. And most of what Carter did was ideologically remove himself from the equation. So we didn't have, a military power pushing for democratic, like, because at one point the idea was to install Western-like countries, and instead the CIA was like, let's install Western puppet allies, and it's just so much easier to control if you have a dictatorship. So the same thing that Israel creating Hamas, or essentially like pruning the tree that becomes Hamas, and then only winning by 2 votes in Palestine 22 years ago, so that they can say, hey, look how bad Israel has enemies. Look how terrible, Palestine is, when Palestine could have easily been, a pretty chill, balkanized part of the Middle East. There's no reason it had to be like this crazy military state. But it's weird, like, is ISIS, and you can see ISIS and ISIL's association with Obama's administration, and there's just something that the CIA really liked. These religious, fanatical military dictatorships, which also isolate their ideologies. So you can think about Cuba, right? Like, how is it possible that the CIA weren't able to remove Hugo Chavez? Is it really? Do you think you think that they didn't kind of like what they had going on there for a while? So it's the same thing. And then once they get it down to a sizable portion, what was the one I was thinking about earlier? It was Yugoslavia, Balkanization. When the Yugoslavia war conflict happened, USSR was trying to finance Serbia, and the West was financing like Slovenia and Croatia. And they were trying to say, look, if you push harder, then we'll let you control this state once it folds into NATO. But vice versa, USSR saying, if the Yugoslavia becomes a state in the USSR, because it's really back then in the 70s and 80s, it was a bigger conflict of who could grab more countries to be part of their union, their world empire union that they were building. So Serbia was aggressive ideologically by installing their leaders into Croatian positions of power in Croatia, putting them as police and commissioners and even as school teachers, right? So they could raise a generation. That's exactly what's going on in Iran. And I expect probably we'll see militant groups in Iran that fight against their own government and that are called terrorist cells, and that they're going to get away with it. If we were going back to the classic way things are done, it'd be like people on CNN and after Syria, that kind of thing would happen in Iran. But mainly because it doesn't make a lot of sense to have a weak Iran. People keep talking about it like they want a weak Iran, but I think what they really want is an Israeli allied nuclear state. No, like if Israel and Iran could be allies, which there's totally more precedent for than people realize. Like, love it or hate it, it could easily happen that Iran becomes a nuclear neighbor. And I think that that's honestly like my favorite of the bad takes or the bad options. I think that's my favorite one, because a nuclear Iran is an interesting Iran, and a decimated Iran is a paved paradise parking lot like they did to Gaza. And I'd much rather, because Iran is the epicenter of civilization and intellectualism and Zoroastrianism, Prometheanism, the idea of like the self-ascended masters, all kinds of interesting things come from Iran. And of course, it's like Baghdad or something in Iraq. Like, we have a precedent to build some sort of a power in Iran, but Greater Israel will probably look at it as property that should be part of the Kingdom of Judea, like biblically speaking. So if they can make it sort of an Israeli puppet state, they will.
Puppet. So, well,
you love puppet states. I know you love puppet states.
That's right. That's right. Well, listen, I've been going through this, just scenarios, what's going to happen. And, of course, I always have to just take a step back and just say, well, I'm just going to be like the Michael Jackson popcorn meme. I'm just going to be asking for more popcorn as this continues just to progress. Now, I don't know, last week we ended on, of course, AI. I always like ending on AI just because it's everywhere. But we were talking about AI, AGI, artificial intelligence. But did you see that AI couldn't even beat an old Atari 2600 at chess? So people talk about this whole idea that, hey, AI is going to take over the world. But I have to ask you, it has to at least beat an Atari in chess first, right?
There's a movie you need to see called Computer Chess. And it looks like it's shot in 1981, but it's made in 2010. It's like a black and white movie about these computer engineers working on a chess AI system. And CJ says there's no such thing as AI. There's no such thing as I. Like, there's no such thing as organic intelligence then. I think AI is pretty much the same thing. And a lot of people get really upset because I think what your difference is organic emotion still. But you can still have really subtle kind of probability driven changes in your emotional priority system, right? Because emotions change your priorities. So you could have different priority systems that you choose from based on different emerging phenomena that might be endangering you. I think that's a major reason people will do that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with humans attempting to be intelligent or creative, but I just was making AI music all day in Japanese, in Portuguese, in German, in English, right? Just like making latter-day Saint hymns from the 1800s into new drift funk trap music. And then we walked down to the supermarket, Lidl, shout out to the Lidl nation, and we get in there and the music playing, I'm like, wow, this sounds like something kind of like a bad version of what I just made. And we laughed for a second, we listened for a little bit longer, like, wait a second, like, I know Suno, that's AI music. And so the whole supermarket, everyone's listening to AI music and they're just walking around like robots, they don't care. Like, they don't know what's going on. They're just buying their vegetables and cheeses and milk, and people are living their lives. So I think very quickly we're going to see a world that's so in your face created by AI. It's already happening. Every video you see with VO, I'm seeing so many commercials now that look like they're filmed. You're like, wait a second, this is with VO, huh? Someone got like a $250 a month subscription so they can make commercials for their product that makes it sound like a person's there. And in German and in any language, like, you can even have a Serbian accented English. This is crazy what they can do now with the generative AI. So I think what we're going to see first, like we talked about last week, is that difference between general intelligence, AGI, but they're misusing the term now. I saw recently someone use AGI to describe generative intelligence. And generative intelligence is, I think, more what people are looking for. They want to see AI come up with something new. But biblically speaking, there's no new thing under the sun. So you're never going to really find something that's new, because AI just know, like, if you were to have a kid write a song, he thinks it's new because he's never heard that song before. But if you get like Bob Dylan, who's not just made every song and heard every song for the last 100 years, but has been listening and replaying music from the 16th century or medieval chants, right? Like, once you get an AI that knows every song from every culture all over the world, it becomes difficult for it to pretend that what it's creating is new, like that it's never existed before. It can go back and forth and try to make things as unusual as possible, or it can forget something for a period of time in order to generate something without realizing, that there's other things that are similar to it. But generative generally is something that's hard for humans to do. We're basically all adapting content that we've learned to new contexts and applying it mathematically, which is why ancient Greek philosophers studied logic so much and syllogisms emerge. So I don't think we're ever going to be in a position where humans are able to really be super generative, but really we're very adaptable. And AI seems to be pretty adaptable too. Restart the stimulation. Yeah, I think that's another thing that I was thinking about this week, because the ancient Egyptians would mummify you and they'd leave your heart because they said that vortex engine was the most important thing for your soul. But they would first scramble your freaking brains out so it drips out your nose. They didn't really think you needed that thing except for once. It's a one-time use brain.
Right. Oh man. So listen, we could probably just keep on going. It is 11:50. Gonna start wrapping it up here, but now you have a very, very interesting guest coming up here in about a day or two.
That's true.
I'll give you the floor and go ahead and talk about who you have coming on and who you're going to be interviewing. This is very, very exciting.
Oh, we're not talking about my friend's Japanese girlfriend? No, yeah, for sure. David Icke is coming to talk. Well, not physically because he's in London, but I'm going to do an hour with David Icke, and we're going to talk to him about a lot of things. If you're familiar with David Icke, you probably know a lot of his work generally. But if you're a new generation that doesn't know David Icke, I was listening to David Icke like 15 to almost 20 years ago.
20 years ago. I feel like back in the late 80s.
Yeah, but I'm a younger cat, so I didn't really know about him until like after Katrina. I think when Katrina hit. Right. Yeah, when Katrina hit, that's when I first heard about him, really. And then I went and saw him speak, like 2010 was the first time I saw him speak. And he did about 10 hours in Santa Monica. So, I've seen a lot of his earlier videos, and I just got his newest book, The Reveal. So I've been listening to that. But if you know David Icke, he a long time ago had kind of a qualm with Alex Jones because Alex Jones had a qualm with him. And Alex Jones would say, this guy, he's talking about the Freemasons, the Illuminati, and all the real stuff, the Council of Foreign Relations, and he's pointing all that out. But he goes off the deep end when he starts talking about reptilian shapeshifters and clockwork elves and all this stuff, which is exactly where Alex went on Rogan.
Right.
So I think at this point they're going to have to kiss and make up, but they're still pushing back and forth. I saw that David Icke was talking about how Alex Jones is, the same as like the Q posts were saying, like he's like compromised by Israel, which, a lot of the people who work for InfoWars, by the way, don't really support Israel. So I don't think I think it's a lot more convoluted than people realize. And Alex, I think also isn't, I like Alex a lot. I've met him as well. I would say that both of them are kind of pushing now more and more into each other's territory, which is really cool. But his newest book, talking about how we're in this matrix that we're kind of revealing and the they live aspect of it and the Schumann resonance. And this all goes back to Roswell as well. I really want to push in a bit about the space time travel stuff. We're talking about the Phoenix event, the horizon point. I think that we're approaching maybe that singularity and how that relates to Tartarian, under like the outside of time manipulation. Because one of the first things that people used to say when I first was looking into Tartaria, I was like, is this a manipulation of time? Because they never heard about it before. It's like, no, I think there's cultural precedent that they hit it. But the more I am immersed in these different reality shifts, Cynthia Sue Larson, Mandela effect, all that stuff to me says it's totally probable that we're living in a convergence of multiple timelines. And if that's the case, it makes sense mostly because timelines start to unravel. And I remember thinking this because of the Donnie Darko movie when I first saw Donnie Darko as a kid, because he is dying, but in only their reality. Because in his own reality, everyone else that he loves starts dying around him until the universe opens a cloud to tear apart the world itself. So from one perspective, it's the apocalypse, but from the other, it's like the Left Behind series apocalypse. Like some people leave as this world starts to end, but there are multiple worlds. So you could be talking about the Armageddon point. There could be multiple Armageddons that have married together from the time of the death of Christ or the resurrection of Christ or the Crusades or the 1940s. There could have been a nuclear apocalypse, or the 1980s. There could have been another. And maybe these are all potential probable realities that are converged together. And now we're seeing more and more of these phenomena because there's already been Mandela effects going back in those periods in time. People say Ford used to be spelled with a J, Fjord cars or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the symbol was slightly different. But I only talked to like really old people who are dead now from, you know, the World War II generation that say that they remember this different world where Ford had like a more important role essentially. And, you know, the Nelson Mandela idea that we remember him dying so specifically, other people have lived in that reality forever. So maybe I live in a reality where Tartaria was always a bigger deal. And, you know, it's something that is being affected by groups in the future who have gotten beyond the singularity and are outside of time. And they're dealing with, you know, Buddhist ascended masters and Nazis and Roswell, New Mexico scientists and grays and different kinds of light shifting or substrate independent transhumanists that are living in light outside of time in the future, right? There could be something like that that's pretty interesting to talk to David Icke about. I think that's kind of where we'll bring that conversation. And also, I want to hear about the British royal family.
When is the conversation? When do you guys have that discussion?
So it's Monday at 5 Vienna time, which I think is noon GMT, noon England. So it's like going to be early for America. It's going to be a morning show in America. But, you know, like if you get up early enough, I think it's 9 a.m. in California, I hope. Is that right? I think it's 5 p.m. in England, 6 p.m. in Austria, and noon in California, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I think is actually we got at work too. David Icke's a Freemason, bro. Dude, I mean, so are a lot of my friends, bro. I mean, if you haven't noticed, I think Thomas, Paranoid American's a Freemason. Yeah. Ooh, super scary, right? I know. But I'm not a Freemason because I don't like to keep secrets. I'm more into like yelling really loudly about stuff in the middle of like an open space.
Well, I'm not into blood oath rituals as well. So
yeah, that's true. I mean,
part.
Or vaccines. Yeah, for sure. I know. Yeah, it just is what it is. Actually, I think that Paranoid American became a Freemason over Zoom meetings.
Who?
So it is what it is. Yeah. You're a Freemason. Everyone's a Freemason. Check under your seat, right? Check under your seat for your Masonic blood rituals, right? Yeah.
Right. So, well, listen, I'm excited about the interview. In the business, we call that a good get. So that's a good get. So tip of the cap to you, sir. Where could everybody find you online?
Well, right here and now, and anything Exertis. So you can find Andreas Exertis on Twitter. You go to exertis.com, donate while you're there. Andreas.me is also a website I run. And then, yeah, check out YouTube and X and Rumble and Odyssey because like all of my videos are available on all of these platforms, you know.
Awesome. Well, listen, want to thank you, of course, for joining in. Look forward to next week. Probably all more nonsense is going to be coming down the pipe. And we'll have commentary about that. Listen, have fun at the Rubber Fist Rainbow Parade. Tell everybody I said hello. They'll be like, well, who's Sam? And you'll be like, well, that's your opportunity to tell them that I am a real award-winning media puppet. So
I'll tell the world, Sam. I'll tell the world. Really quickly, I want to say Magatar just said that David Icke sat on a Freemasonic throne for a laugh. He said in the reveal, yeah, that's true. And also, when I was a kid, I sat on the Dalai Lama's throne, just, you know, for laughs. So I feel like, you know, at least on one level or another, we're all connected to space-time travelers, and that'll be good. That'll be a good commonality.
You know why? Speaking of thrones, the reason why we're all connected is because we're all sitting on porcelain thrones at some point during the day as well.
This is true.
So,
unless you're Donald Trump, and then it's gold.
Just kick it off here. So, thanks again for joining. Though through political correctness, we can't see life as it may be. That world hidden from you and me. I just laugh and start to sing. Ha ha ha. It's SideShow, infotainment, politicians, and news anchors, and talking points that make my eardrums bleed. The most trusted puppet in media is me. Reporting since Roswell, I'm Sam, NewsMan.